The table was set perfectly. White linen, her grandmother's china, candles flickering like tiny amber flames. I'd spent 3 hours preparing Bree's favorite meal, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables and that expensive wine she always ordered at restaurants. The kind of dinner that used to make her smile and reach across the table to squeeze my hand. Those days felt like ancient history now. I'm Kai Dornell, 42 years old, and I build custom furniture for wealthy folks who want something unique in their lakeside mansions. 10 years in the Army taught me patience, observation, and how to plan 3 moves ahead. My workshop behind our main home is my sanctuary, a place where wood shavings smell like possibility and every joint fits exactly where it should. Unlike my marriage. Bree walked into the dining room wearing that black dress, the one that hugged her curves and made other men stare. Her auburn hair cascaded over bare shoulders, and her green eyes sparkled with something I hadn't seen directed at me in months. She looked stunning, which made what I was about to do both easier and harder. "This is lovely, Kai," she said, settling into her chair with practiced grace. At 38, Bree still turned heads at every marketing conference and client meeting. "What's the occasion? Can't a husband surprise his wife?" I poured her wine, watching her face. Besides, I wanted to talk. She took a sip, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the stem. "About what?" "About lines." Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Lines? Last week at the Morrison party, you told Jennifer that there was a line of men waiting for you. Remember?" Bree's laugh came out too bright, too forced. "Oh, that. I was just joking around. You know how Jennifer gets always fishing for gossip." I nodded, cutting my salmon with deliberate precision. "Funny thing about lines, though. Sometimes they're longer than we realize." The candles cast dancing shadows across her face as she studied me. Something shifted in her expression, wariness creeping in around the edges of her smile. "Kai, what are you getting at?" I reached beneath my chair and withdrew a black folder, placing it gently beside her wine glass. "Open it." Her fingers trembled slightly as she lifted the cover. Inside were 8 photographs, each one time-stamped and crystal clear. Bree and Trent Ardell at the Lakeshore Motel. Bree and Trent in his silver Mercedes. Bree and Trent sharing intimate lunches at that little cafe across town. The color drained from her face like water from a broken dam. "These aren't what they look like," she whispered. "Really? Because they look like my wife having an affair with a married real estate developer." I kept my voice conversational, almost friendly. "But please, enlighten me. What are they?" Bree's composure cracked. "Kai, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're excellent at explanations. Like how you explained those late nights at the office. Or those weekend business trips to Portland that somehow never appeared on your company calendar. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." She set the photos down with shaking hands. "How long have you known?" 3 months. Ever since you started password protecting your phone and taking calls in the garage." I leaned back in my chair. "You're not as careful as you think, sweetheart." The endearment hit her like a slap. Tears welled in her eyes. Whether from guilt or getting caught, I couldn't tell anymore. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "Trent and we just connected. He understands my ambitions, my dreams." "Your dreams of embezzlement?" That stopped her cold. "What?" I pulled out my phone and connected it to our television. The screen filled with bank statements, loan applications, and email correspondence, all featuring Bree's forged signature on documents using our house as collateral for a loan I'd never authorized. $50,000, I said, watching her face. "Transferred to an account in your name 3 weeks ago. The same week Trent's development project got that mysterious influx of private funding." Bree shot to her feet, her chair scraping against hardwood. "You had no right to go through my private—" "Private? We're married, Bree. Or did you forget that along with your wedding vows?" She began pacing, her heels clicking like a countdown timer. "This is all wrong. You're twisting everything to make me look like a cheating, lying thief." I stood slowly, my 6-foot frame casting a long shadow across the table. "I don't need to twist anything. The evidence speaks for itself." Her eyes flashed with something dangerous. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, let me tell you something, Kai Dornell. I am done apologizing for wanting more than this." She gestured around our comfortable home. "More than your little workshop and your simple dreams. I deserve better." "You deserve exactly what you're about to get." The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension like a blade. Bree looked confused as I walked to answer it. Her brother Derek stood on the porch, his usually friendly face creased with concern. "Hey Kai, got your message? You said it was urgent?" "Come in, Derek. Perfect timing." Derek followed me back to the dining room, where Bree stood frozen beside the evidence of her betrayal. Her brother's eyes took in the photos, the bank statements, the guilty expression on his sister's face. "What's all this?" Derek asked. I handed him a USB drive. "Everything's on there. Audio recordings, financial documents, hotel receipts. Your sister's been busy." Derek plugged the drive into his laptop, and soon Bree's voice filled the room through the speakers. "The loan paperwork is ready. Kai will never know. He barely pays attention to the finances anyway. Once your project gets approved, we can pay it back and pocket the difference. Easy money, baby." Trent's response crackled through the audio. "You're brilliant, gorgeous. This deal's going to set us both up for life." Derek's face went ashen. He looked at his sister like he'd never seen her before. "Bree, please tell me this isn't real." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in years, Bree Dornell was speechless. "I trusted you," Derek said quietly. "When you asked me to co-sign that business loan last year, I trusted you, and this is how you repay that trust?" "Derek, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He unplugged his laptop and stood. "You're not the person I thought you were." Bree's composure finally shattered completely. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I'm having an affair. Yes, I took the loan. And you know what? I'm not sorry. I'm tired of being married to a man who's content to build furniture for rich people instead of becoming one himself. I'm tired of living in this boring town with these boring people and pretending I'm happy." She grabbed her purse from the counter, her movements sharp and angry. "Trent sees my potential. He appreciates what I bring to the table, something you stopped doing years ago." "And what exactly do you bring to the table, Bree, besides fraud and adultery?" She whirled on me, her face flushed with rage. "More than you'll ever know. And when this is over, when I'm with someone who actually deserves me, you'll realize what you lost." The front door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. Derek and I stood in the sudden silence, listening to her car screech out of the driveway. "I'm sorry, Kai," Derek said finally. "I had no idea she was capable of this." "Neither did I, but that's the thing about lines. You never really know how long they are until someone crosses them." Derek left shortly after, taking copies of everything with him. I sat alone at the dining table, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage and the evidence of my wife's betrayal. The candles had burned low, casting longer shadows across the photographs. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Upstairs, I could hear Bree moving around, probably packing or making frantic phone calls. I climbed the steps quietly, my military training making each footfall silent on the hardwood. Her voice drifted from our bedroom. "Trent, it's me. He knows everything. We need to talk." I pressed myself against the wall, listening. "No, I didn't tell him about the other accounts, or about the Portland property deal, but he's got photos, recordings. I don't know how he got so much evidence." A pause. "What do you mean, handle it?" "Trent, I'm scared. He's not reacting the way I expected. He's too calm, too prepared. It's like he's been planning this. Another pause, longer this time. Fine. I'll meet you tomorrow. But after that, we need to figure out our next move. I'm not going down for this alone. I heard her moving toward the door and quickly retreated to my workshop. Through the window, I watched her load 2 suitcases into her BMW and drive away into the night. Sitting at my workbench, surrounded by half-finished projects and the tools of my trade, I opened my laptop and began typing. Email after email, each one carefully crafted and precisely targeted. By morning, Bree's affair would be the least of her problems. You see, she was right about one thing. I had been planning this. For 3 months, I'd been documenting every lie, every secret meeting, every fraudulent transaction. I'd built a case against her the same way I built furniture, with patience, precision, and attention to detail. The line wasn't just broken. It was about to snap back and hit her right in the face. My phone buzzed at exactly 6:30 a.m. Big Joe's name flashed on the screen, along with a photo of Bree's BMW hooked to his tow truck. Package delivered, his gravelly voice announced. She's going to be real unhappy when she comes looking for her ride. Perfect timing. The bank opens in an hour. You sure about this, Kai? Once we start down this road, the road started 3 months ago when she decided to steal from me. I'm just following it to its logical conclusion. Joe chuckled, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. Your funeral, buddy. But I gotta admit, it's gonna be entertaining. I hung up and made coffee, the morning routine feeling surreal after last night's revelations. Through the kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Ricketts next door watering her flowers, probably hoping to catch some gossip about the late-night drama. The old woman had radar for neighborhood scandals. At 8 sharp, I walked into First National Bank wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase full of documentation. Margaret Chen, the branch manager, greeted me with professional warmth. Mr. Dornell, good to see you. How can we help today? I need to report fraudulent activity on my accounts and secure my assets pending a divorce proceeding. Her smile faltered. I see. Let's discuss this in my office. 20 minutes later, every joint account was frozen, every credit card canceled, and every automatic payment suspended. The loan Bree had taken using our house as collateral was flagged for investigation, and her access to our safety deposit box was revoked. This is highly unusual, Margaret said, reviewing the forged documents. We'll need to involve our fraud department. I understand. I just want to protect what's left of my financial security. As I left the bank, my phone rang. Bree's number. Kai, what did you do? My cards aren't working, and some tow truck driver took my car. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Sleep well at the motel? Don't play games with me. I need my car back, and I need access to our accounts. Funny thing about joint accounts, they require joint authorization for major transactions, like $50,000 loans. Static crackled through the connection. She was probably standing outside the Lakeshore Motel in yesterday's dress, trying to figure out how her perfect plan had gone sideways. Kai, be reasonable. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. The only thing that needs fixing is the fraud you committed. But don't worry, I'm sure Trent will help you sort everything out. After all, you're such valuable partners. I hung up and drove to the police station. Detective Ray Morrow was an old friend from my Army Reserve days, a straight shooter who'd seen enough domestic drama to fill a library. Kai, heard you might be stopping by. Derek called this morning. Then you know why I'm here. Ray poured 2 cups of coffee and settled behind his desk. Show me what you've got. I laid out everything, the photographs, the audio recordings, the forged loan documents, the bank statements showing unauthorized transfers. Ray examined each piece with professional detachment. This is solid evidence of adultery and financial fraud, he said finally. But what exactly do you want me to do with it? Nothing yet. I just want it on record in case things escalate. Things have a way of escalating in situations like this. You planning anything I should know about? Just protecting myself and my property, everything legal and above board. Ray leaned back in his chair. Kai, I've known you for 15 years. You're not the type to let something like this slide. What's your real plan? My real plan is to make sure Bree faces the consequences of her choices. She wanted a line of men waiting for her. Let's see how attractive she is when her reputation's in ruins and her bank account's empty. Just remember, revenge has a way of biting back. Don't do anything stupid. Stupid would be letting her get away with it. I left the station and drove across town to Bree's workplace, Pinnacle Marketing, a trendy agency that specialized in social media campaigns for local businesses. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, looked nervous when I walked in. Is Bree available? She's not in today. Called in sick. Interesting. Could you give this to her manager? I handed Ashley an envelope containing copies of the bank fraud evidence. Tell him it concerns Bree's unauthorized use of client resources for personal gain. Ashley's eyes widened. Sir, I don't think. Just make sure he gets it. Today. The drive home took me past the Lakeshore Motel, where Bree's BMW sat in the parking lot, looking abandoned and pathetic. I pulled in and knocked on room 12, the same room from the photographs. Trent Ardell answered the door wearing wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt that had seen better days. At 45, he was still handsome in a country club sort of way, but stress had carved new lines around his eyes. What do you want, Dornell? Just wanted to see the man who thinks my wife is worth destroying 2 marriages over. Trent stepped outside, closing the door behind him. Look, this situation is complicated. Bree and we didn't plan for this to happen. But you did plan the loan fraud. That was very intentional. His confident facade cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. $50,000 funneled through my wife's forged loan application directly into your development project. That's conspiracy to commit fraud, Trent. Federal offense. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording of their conversation about the easy money. Trent's face went pale as his own voice filled the air. Sounds like proof to me. Question is, what are you going to do about it? What do you want? I want you to understand something very clearly. This isn't some romantic triangle where you get to ride off into the sunset with my wife. This is a criminal conspiracy, and you're both going to pay for it. Trent tried to look intimidating, puffing out his chest and stepping closer. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. Before he could respond, I walked back to my truck and drove away, leaving him standing in the motel parking lot like a scarecrow in expensive clothes. The rest of the afternoon was spent in my workshop, making phone calls and sending emails. By 5 o'clock, I'd contacted every major client of Pinnacle Marketing, every member of the Chamber of Commerce, and every social connection Bree had cultivated over the years. I didn't spread lies or rumors. I simply shared facts, documented evidence of financial fraud, adultery, and breach of trust. In a small town like ours, facts travel faster than gossip and hit harder than rumors. My phone rang constantly. Friends, neighbors, business associates, all wanting to know if the stories they were hearing were true. I confirmed what I could prove and declined to comment on speculation. At sunset, I was sitting on my back porch with a beer when Derek's truck pulled into the driveway. He looked like he'd aged 10 years since last night. She called me, he said, settling into the chair beside me. Crying, begging me to talk sense into you. And what did you tell her? I told her she made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. Derek accepted the beer I offered. But I also told her she's still my sister, and I'll help her find a lawyer if she needs one. Fair enough. Kai, what you're doing, it's going to destroy her completely. Her job, her reputation, her future in this town. Is that really what you want? I thought about it for a long moment, watching the sun paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. What I wanted was a wife who honored her commitments and a marriage built on trust and respect. What I got was betrayal and fraud. So now she gets the consequences. And after that, what happens when the dust settles? I rebuild, same as I've done before. Derek finished his beer and stood to leave. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than most men would. But don't let revenge consume you, okay? You're better than that. After he left, I sat alone as darkness settled over the lake. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new confrontations, new opportunities to expose the truth about Bree and Trent's betrayal. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. The line they'd crossed was behind them now, and there was no going back. All that remained was to see how far they'd fall when the ground gave way beneath their feet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You'll regret what you've started." I smiled and typed back, looking forward to it. The war was just beginning, and I intended to win it. Tuesday morning brought the kind of autumn rain that turns Maine's back roads into muddy rivers and makes smart people stay indoors. I was not smart people. I was a man with a mission and a thermos full of coffee, parked across the street from Pinnacle Marketing at 7:30 a.m. Bree's office building was a converted Victorian mansion, all gingerbread trim and pretentious charm. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see lights coming on as employees arrived for another day of crafting social media campaigns and organizing corporate events. At 8:15, Bree's BMW pulled into the parking lot. She'd obviously retrieved it from the tow yard, though I noticed she parked in the back corner, away from the main entrance. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in her shoulders as she hurried through the rain. My phone buzzed. Big Joe. "Morning, sunshine. Got some interesting news from my buddy at the tow yard." "I'm listening." "Your lovely wife paid the impound fee with cash, $300 in 20s, like she'd been saving up for a rainy day. Also threw a fit about how this was all a big misunderstanding and someone was going to pay for harassing her. Someone's definitely going to pay, just not who she thinks. There's more. Jimmy at the yard said she was with some guy, tall, silver hair, fancy clothes. Sounds like your boy Trent. Interesting. They're sticking together. For now. But you know what they say about honor among thieves." After Joe hung up, I settled in to watch the building. At 9:30, a black sedan pulled up, and 3 people in business suits got out. They moved with the purposeful stride of investigators or auditors, definitely not clients seeking marketing advice. 20 minutes later, the same 3 people emerged with Bree walking between them. Even through the rain, I could see her face was flushed and her hands were shaking. They spoke briefly in the parking lot before she got in her car and drove away, followed closely by the sedan. My phone rang. Ashley, the receptionist. "Mr. Dornell? I probably shouldn't be calling you, but..." "What happened, Ashley?" "Some people from the state attorney general's office were here. They had a warrant to search Bree's office and computer, and they arrested her." "Arrested her for what?" "Wire fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. They said someone filed a complaint with documentation of illegal financial activity." I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. That's unfortunate. "Mr. Dornell, were you the one who..." "I simply reported criminal activity to the appropriate authorities. What they chose to do with that information was their decision." Ashley was quiet for a moment. "She's been lying to everyone here for months, taking money from client accounts, forging signatures on contracts, padding expenses. We all suspected something, but nobody wanted to say anything." "Why not?" "Because she was the boss's favorite, and because she made it clear that anyone who crossed her would regret it. Well, now she's the one with regrets." After hanging up, I drove to the courthouse to see what public records might be available. Bree's arrest was already in the system, 3 felony charges with bail set at $50,000, the same amount she'd stolen from me. Poetic justice has a lovely symmetry to it. My next stop was Trent's real estate office, a glass and steel monument to his success located in the town's upscale shopping district. His secretary, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and nervous hands, looked up as I entered. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Ardell isn't available today." "Really? Where might I find him?" He's dealing with some personal matters. Can I take a message?" I handed her my business card. "Just tell him Kai Dornell stopped by to discuss some mutual interests." Her face went pale. "Oh, I'll make sure he gets the message." "I'm sure you will." The drive home gave me time to think about next steps. Bree was in custody, Trent was hiding, and their carefully constructed world was collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. But I wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. Mrs. Ricketts was waiting by my mailbox when I pulled into the driveway, armed with a plate of cookies and an arsenal of questions. "Kai, dear, I heard the most terrible rumors about Bree. Surely they can't be true." "I'm afraid they are, Mrs. Ricketts, but I appreciate your concern." That poor girl. She always seemed so ambitious, so driven. I suppose that's what led her astray. Ambition isn't the problem. It's the methods people choose to achieve their ambitions that matter. She nodded sagely, as if I'd shared some profound wisdom instead of stating the obvious. "Will you be all right, dear? This must be so difficult for you." "I'll manage. Thank you for asking." That afternoon, I received a call from Bree's bail bondsman. She'd been released on her own recognizance, pending trial. The prosecutor had argued for higher bail, but her lawyer, some expensive shark from Portland, had convinced the judge she wasn't a flight risk. They were wrong about that. At 4 o'clock, Derek called with an update. "She's staying at the Riverside Inn, paid for a week in advance with cash. And Kai, she's talking about leaving town permanently. Let her run. It'll just make her look more guilty. The thing is, she's not running alone. Trent's been seen at the hotel. They're planning something." "Planning what?" "I don't know, but my guess is they're going to disappear together and try to start over somewhere else. That would be unfortunate. For them. Kai, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to have a conversation with Trent's wife." Linda Ardell lived in a sprawling colonial mansion overlooking the lake, the kind of house that screamed old money and established privilege. She answered the door herself, an elegant woman in her early 40s with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes. "Mrs. Ardell, I'm Kai Dornell. I believe we need to talk." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or resignation. "I've been expecting you," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "Would you like some coffee?" We sat in her living room, surrounded by antique furniture and family photographs that told the story of a successful marriage and privileged life. Linda poured coffee from an expensive service set and settled back in her chair with the poise of someone accustomed to difficult conversations. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About the affair? 6 months? About the fraud?" "As of this morning, when the FBI showed up at Trent's office with a warrant." "The FBI?" "Wire fraud is a federal crime when it crosses state lines. Apparently, some of the money ended up in accounts in New Hampshire and Massachusetts." I felt a grim satisfaction. Bree and Trent had been even more careless than I'd realized. "What will you do now?" I asked. Linda smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I've already done it. Filed for divorce this morning, froze all joint accounts, and changed the locks on this house. Trent's going to find himself homeless as well as unemployed." "You don't seem particularly upset." "Oh, I'm furious, but I'm also practical. Trent made his choices and now he gets to live with the consequences, just like your wife." We talked for another hour, comparing notes and sharing information. Linda was a formidable woman, the kind who'd built her husband's success through careful planning and social connections. Now she was applying those same skills to his destruction. "There's something else you should know." she said as I prepared to leave. Trent's been skimming money from his development projects for years. I have documentation of shell companies, offshore accounts, and fraudulent contracts. The affair with your wife was just the tip of the iceberg. Why are you telling me this? Because I want him to lose everything, the same way he destroyed our marriage, and because I think you're the kind of man who knows how to use information effectively. I left Linda's house with a flash drive containing enough evidence to put Trent away for decades. The rain had stopped, and evening light was painting the lake in shades of amber and gold. It was beautiful, peaceful, and completely at odds with the storm brewing in my chest. Back home, I sat in my workshop and reviewed Linda's files. Trent Ardell wasn't just an adulterer and a fraud. He was a career criminal who'd been stealing from investors, contractors, and partners for years. Bree had gotten involved with a man who made her own crimes look like petty theft. My phone rang. Unknown number. Kai, it's me. Bree's voice was small, defeated. Nothing like the confident woman who'd walked out of our house 2 days ago. I'm listening. I need help. The charges, the arrest, everything's spinning out of control. I never meant for it to go this far. What exactly did you mean? I meant to take some money, help Trent with his project, and pay it back before you noticed. It was supposed to be temporary. $50,000 was supposed to be temporary? I know how it sounds, but I was desperate. Our marriage was falling apart. I felt trapped, and Trent offered me a way out. A way out that involved stealing from me. She was crying now, soft sobs that might have moved me once upon a time. I'm sorry, Kai. I'm so sorry. Can we please just talk? Face to face? I'll explain everything. Where are you? The Riverside Inn, room 24. Please just give me 10 minutes to explain. I hung up and stared out the window at the darkening lake. Bree wanted to talk, to explain, to somehow make this right. But there was no making this right. There was only justice, consequences, and the satisfaction of watching someone reap exactly what they'd sown. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. It was time for our final conversation. The Riverside Inn squatted beside Route 2, like a guilty secret, its neon sign flickering pink and blue against the October darkness. 24 units of faded dreams and temporary arrangements, the kind of place where people went when they'd run out of better options. Room 24 sat at the far end, tucked between an ice machine that hummed like a worn-out refrigerator and a stairwell that carried the scent of cigarettes and old disappointment. I knocked twice and waited. Bree opened the door wearing jeans and a sweater I'd bought her last Christmas. Her face was puffy from crying, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her hands shook as she gestured me inside. Thank you for coming, she said, closing the door behind me. I wasn't sure you would. The room was exactly what I'd expected. 2 double beds with floral comforters, a television bolted to a particle board dresser, and carpet that had seen better decades. Bree's suitcases sat open on one bed, clothes spilling out like the contents of a broken life. Nice accommodations, I said, settling into the room's single chair. Very romantic. She winced. Kai, please, I know you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. But we need to talk about this rationally, like adults. Adults don't steal from their spouses and commit fraud. Children do that. Bree sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped in her lap. You're right. I made terrible mistakes, but I want to fix this, to make it right between us. How exactly do you plan to fix felony charges and a destroyed marriage? I'll pay back every penny. I'll testify against Trent, cooperate with the investigation, whatever it takes, and then maybe we can work on us, on our marriage. I studied her face, looking for some sign of genuine remorse or understanding. All I saw was desperation and calculation, the same expression she wore when trying to close a difficult client. You still don't get it, do you? Get what? This isn't about money, Bree. It's about trust, respect, and the fact that you chose to betray everything we built together for a man you barely know." Her composure cracked. "I know Trent better than you think. We've been together for 8 months, not 3. We have plans, dreams, a future." Had, past tense. Your future is now measured in years of potential prison time. "That's not going to happen. My lawyer says the charges won't stick. There's no proof I intended to permanently deprive you of the money." "Your lawyer's an optimist, or a liar." She stood and began pacing, her nervous energy filling the small room. "Look, I know you're hurt. I know you feel betrayed. But destroying my life isn't going to make you feel better. Actually, it's working pretty well so far. This isn't you, Kai. You're not vindictive or cruel. You're better than this. I'm exactly what you made me, a man who learned that his wife was a stranger." A knock at the door interrupted us. Bree looked confused, then worried as she peered through the peephole. "It's Trent," she whispered. "Let him in. This should be interesting." She opened the door, and Trent Ardle stepped into the room wearing an expensive suit that couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. He stopped short when he saw me sitting in the chair like I owned the place. "What's he doing here?" Trent demanded. "Having a conversation with my wife. You remember wives, don't you? You have one too." Trent's face flushed red. "You son of a—" "Careful," I said, standing slowly. "We're all adults here. Let's keep it civilized." "Civilized? You destroyed my business, my marriage, my reputation. There's nothing civilized about what you've done. I documented your crimes and reported them to the appropriate authorities. If that destroyed your life, maybe you should have made better choices." Bree stepped between us. "Stop it, both of you. Fighting isn't going to solve anything." "Actually, fighting might solve quite a bit," Trent said, his hands clenched into fists. "I'm tired of this guy thinking he's smarter than everyone else." "I don't think I'm smarter," I said calmly. "I just think I'm more prepared." "Prepared for what?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. "For recording this entire conversation, including your threat of violence and admission that you've been planning to flee the jurisdiction." Trent's face went white. "You're recording us?" "Maine is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of without informing the other parties." Bree sank onto the bed, her head in her hands. "Oh God. Kai, why are you doing this?" "Because you both need to understand something very clearly. This isn't a romantic drama where love conquers all. This is real life with real consequences for real crimes." Trent moved toward me, his face twisted with rage. "Turn off that phone or I'll—" "You'll what? Assault me? Add another felony to your collection?" He stopped, breathing hard, clearly wanting to hit me but smart enough to realize it would only make things worse. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to face the music. Both of you. No running away, no plea bargains, no sob stories about how love made you do it. You committed crimes, and you're going to pay for them. And if we don't?" I smiled. "Then I release everything I have to every news outlet, social media platform, and gossip network in 3 states. Your affair will be public knowledge from here to Boston." Bree looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Kai, please, I'm begging you, don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. You did it to yourselves. But we can fix this. We can make it right." "How? By giving back the money you stole? By apologizing for the lies? By pretending the last 8 months never happened?" "Yes, if that's what it takes." I shook my head. "It's too late for that. The line's been crossed and there's no going back." Trent had been quietly moving around the room, and now he was standing near the door. "Bree, we need to go. Now." "Go where?" I asked. "The FBI has frozen your accounts, your passport's been flagged, and every law enforcement agency in New England has your descriptions. We'll figure something out." "No, you won't, because you're not as smart as you think you are, and you're not as prepared as I am." I moved toward the door, blocking their exit. "Sit down, both of you. We're going to finish this conversation." Trent looked like he was considering rushing me, but I had 6 inches and 30 pounds on him, plus military training he couldn't match. After a moment, he sat heavily on the second bed. "What do you want us to say?" Bree asked. "That we're sorry? That we made mistakes? Fine. I'm sorry, Kai. I'm sorry I hurt you. Sorry I lied. Sorry I stole from you. Is that what you need to hear?" "What I need is for you to understand that actions have consequences. Real consequences that can't be apologized away or explained as temporary lapses in judgment." "So what happens now?" Trent asked. "Now you both turn yourselves in, cooperate fully with the investigation, and accept whatever punishment the court decides is appropriate." "And if we do that, you'll leave us alone?" "I'll stop actively pursuing your destruction, but I won't lift a finger to help you either." They looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, Bree nodded. "Okay, we'll surrender tomorrow morning. But Kai, after this is over, I never want to see you again." "That makes 2 of us." I headed for the door, then paused. "One more thing. Don't even think about running. I have people watching this place, and the first sign you're trying to flee, I'll have every cop in the state looking for you." It was a bluff, but they didn't know that. Outside, the October air felt clean and cold after the stale atmosphere of the motel room. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, watching their window, making sure they weren't immediately packing to run. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "How did it go?" "About as expected. They're scared, desperate, and still don't fully grasp how much trouble they're in." "Think they'll actually surrender tomorrow?" "Probably. They don't have many other options." But as I drove home through the quiet streets of our small town, I couldn't shake the feeling that Bree and Trent had one more surprise left in them. Desperate people do desperate things, and they were about as desperate as it gets. I'd have to be ready for whatever came next. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of wind that strips the last leaves from trees and reminds you that winter's coming whether you're ready or not. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when Big Joe called at 7:30. "They're gone," he said without preamble. "Gone how?" "Checked out of the motel at 5 a.m. Paid cash, left no forwarding address. My buddy at the front desk said they looked like they hadn't slept all night." I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. Not panic, but the heightened awareness that comes when a carefully planned operation hits an unexpected snag. "Any idea which direction they headed?" "North on Route 2, toward the interstate. Could be anywhere by now." After Joe hung up, I called Detective Morrow and reported that my wife and her accomplice had fled the jurisdiction in violation of their bail agreements. He promised to put out a bolo alert and notify the FBI, but we both knew they had a significant head start. I was considering my next move when Derek's truck pulled into my driveway. He looked like he'd been up all night, his usual neat appearance replaced by wrinkled clothes and red eyes. "They called me around midnight," he said, accepting the coffee I offered. "Bree was crying, begging me to wire them money for a fresh start somewhere else." "What did you tell her?" "I told her she was making the biggest mistake of her life and hung up. But Kai, she sounded desperate, really desperate." "Desperate people make stupid decisions. That works in our favor." "Does it? Because right now they're in the wind, and you're stuck here dealing with the aftermath." Derek had a point. Bree and Trent running away felt like a hollow victory. They were gone, but they'd escaped real consequences for their actions. Justice delayed is justice denied, and I wasn't about to let them disappear into new identities and clean slates. "I need to make some calls," I told Derek. "See if I can figure out where they went." The first call was to Linda Ardell, who answered on the second ring. "They cleaned out a safety deposit box yesterday afternoon," she said. "Cash, jewelry, some bearer bonds I didn't even know existed. Probably $50,000 worth of portable assets. Enough to disappear for a while." "More than enough. But Kai, there's something else." Trent's been in contact with some unsavory people, investors who don't appreciate being defrauded. He owes money to some very dangerous individuals. How dangerous? The kind who break legs first and ask questions later. If they find Trent before the police do, running away will be the least of his problems. My second call was to a private investigator I'd worked with during my divorce proceedings, a former state trooper named Marcus Webb, who specialized in finding people who didn't want to be found. "I can track them," Marcus said, after I explained the situation, "but it's going to cost you, and there's no guarantee they haven't already gone underground. Do it, whatever it costs. Give me 24 hours. I'll start with credit card records, cell phone pings, and traffic cameras. If they're still using their real names, I'll find them." The waiting was the hardest part. I tried to stay busy in my workshop, but every passing hour felt like Bree and Trent getting further away from justice. By evening, I was ready to climb the walls. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Kai, it's me." Bree's voice was barely a whisper, full of fear and exhaustion. "Where are you?" "I can't tell you that, but I need your help." "My help?" "That's rich. Please, just listen. Trent's lost his mind. He's talking about going to Mexico, maybe South America. He has contacts there, people who can give us new identities." "Sounds like you've got it all figured out." "No, we don't. These people Trent owes money to, they found us. They're following us, threatening us. One of them called and said they were going to make an example of Trent." I felt a cold satisfaction. "Play with fire, get burned." "Kai, they said they'd hurt me too, just for being with him. I'm scared." "You should be. You chose to get involved with a criminal, and now you're dealing with criminal consequences." "I want to come home. I want to turn myself in, cooperate with the investigation, whatever it takes, but Trent won't let me." "Won't let you? You're a grown woman, Bree. Make your own choices." "You don't understand. He's gotten paranoid, violent. He has a gun now, and he says if I try to leave him, he'll make sure I never testify against him." This was a new development, and not one I'd anticipated. "Where are you right now?" "A motel in New Hampshire, Route 16 near the mountains. Trent went out to get food, but he'll be back soon." "Give me the address." "I can't. If you call the police and they corner us here, Trent might do something crazy." "Then what do you want from me?" "I want you to meet me somewhere safe, alone. Help me get away from Trent so I can surrender properly." Every instinct I had screamed that this was a trap, but there was something in Bree's voice, genuine terror, that made me hesitate. "Why would you trust me to help you after everything that's happened?" "Because despite everything, I know you're not a bad man. And because you're the only person I can call who might actually come." "Where?" "There's a rest stop on Route 16, about 10 miles south of North Conway. Tomorrow morning at 8. Come alone and I'll explain everything." I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone and trying to decide if Bree was telling the truth or setting me up for something. Either way, I couldn't ignore the possibility that she was in real danger. I called Marcus Webb back. "I may have a location on them. New Hampshire, Route 16 corridor. Can you get up there tonight?" "Already on my way. Got a hit on Trent's credit card at a gas station in Conway about 2 hours ago." "Be careful. Apparently he's armed now." "Aren't they all? I'll call you when I have something concrete." That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying Bree's call, trying to read between the lines and figure out what she was really asking for. Was she genuinely trying to escape from Trent? Or was this some elaborate scheme to get me alone and vulnerable? By morning, I'd decided it didn't matter. Whatever game Bree was playing, I was going to see it through to the end. I loaded my truck with everything I might need: cash, a first aid kit, my service pistol from my army days, and a digital recorder to capture whatever confession or threat she had planned. The drive to New Hampshire took 3 hours through winding mountain roads painted with autumn colors. The rest stop was a standard highway facility, parking lot, picnic tables, and restrooms surrounded by pine trees and tourist information signs. I arrived 15 minutes early and positioned myself where I could see the entire area. At exactly 8 o'clock, a battered Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot. Bree got out alone, looking around nervously before walking to one of the picnic tables. She looked terrible, pale, thin, wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago. Her hands shook as she lit a cigarette, a habit she'd supposedly quit years ago. I approached carefully, my hand near my weapon. "You came," she said, not looking up. "I said I would. Where's Trent?" "Back at the motel, sleeping off a bottle of whiskey. He doesn't know I'm here." "What do you want, Bree?" She finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine fear mixed with desperate hope. "I want to end this. All of it. The running, the lies, the constant terror that those men are going to find us and hurt us." "Then turn yourself in." "I will, but first, I need you to know the truth about everything. The real truth, not just the parts you've figured out." She took a long drag from her cigarette and began to talk. "The affair started last winter, not 8 months ago. Trent approached me at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, said he'd been watching me, thought I had potential for bigger things." "Bigger than what?" "Bigger than being married to a furniture maker in a small town. He painted this picture of us as a power couple, building an empire together." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe him. Our marriage was stagnant, Kai. We were going through the motions, living parallel lives in the same house. I didn't argue because part of me knew she was right. We'd grown apart over the years, become roommates instead of lovers. The money wasn't supposed to be permanent," she continued. "Trent had this development deal that needed quick capital, and he promised I'd get my investment back plus 50% profit within 6 months. So you forged my signature and stole from our accounts." I rationalized it as borrowing. Stupid, I know, but I convinced myself it would all work out. "What changed?" "The development deal was fake. A shell game designed to steal money from investors and hide it in offshore accounts. By the time I realized what was really happening, I was in too deep to back out." She finished her cigarette and immediately lit another one. "Those men who are following us, they're not just loan sharks. They're part of a money laundering operation that Trent's been working with for years. He's been moving dirty money through real estate deals, taking a percentage for himself. And now they want their money back. They want their money, plus interest, plus Trent's head on a platter, and they don't care if I get hurt in the process." I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid, tired of running, tired of being with a man who treats me like property instead of a partner. So leave him." I tried. Last night I told him I was done, that I wanted to go home and face the consequences of what we'd done. He pulled a gun on me, Kai, put it right against my head and said if I ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure I never lived to testify against him. Where is he now? Passed out drunk at the Pineview Motel, room 18. But he'll wake up soon, and when he realizes I'm gone, he'll come looking. As if summoned by her words, the sound of squealing tires echoed across the parking lot. Trent's silver Mercedes came flying around the corner, sliding to a stop 20 feet away. Trent jumped out, his hair disheveled and his eyes wild with rage and panic. In his right hand was a black pistol. "Get away from her!" he screamed, pointing the gun in my direction. "Trent, please," Bree said, standing slowly. "Just calm down. We can work this out." "Work it out? You were going to run back to him, weren't you? Leave me here to deal with Kozlov and his people alone." "Who's Kozlov?" I asked. "Russian mob," Trent said, his gun hand shaking. "And they're going to be here any minute, because my loving girlfriend here decided to use her cell phone to call you. They've been tracking us through GPS." Bree went white. "I didn't know." "You didn't think, just like always." The sound of approaching engines cut through the morning air. 2 black SUVs were coming up the access road, moving fast. "Get in the car," Trent ordered, waving his gun at both of us. Now. I'm not going anywhere with you, I said. Yes, you are. Because if Kozlov's people find us here, they're going to assume you're part of this whole thing, and they don't leave witnesses. The SUVs were getting closer. In seconds, we'd be trapped in a parking lot with armed criminals and a desperate man with a gun. Move! Trent screamed. Against every instinct I had, I grabbed Bree's hand and ran for my truck. Behind us, Trent was getting back into his Mercedes, and the SUVs were pulling into the parking lot. The final chase was about to begin. The first gunshot shattered my rear window as I floored the accelerator, sending my truck careening out of the rest stop parking lot with Bree clutching the dashboard beside me. In my mirrors, I could see Trent's Mercedes spinning gravel as he followed, and behind him, 2 black SUVs with tinted windows giving chase. Why didn't you tell me about the phone tracking? I shouted over the engine noise. I didn't know. Bree's voice was high with panic. Trent handles all the technical stuff. Well, your boyfriend just got us all targeted by the Russian mob. Route 16 wound through the White Mountains like a snake, full of sharp curves and steep drops that would challenge any driver under normal circumstances. At 80 miles per hour, with armed criminals in pursuit, it was a recipe for disaster. My phone buzzed. Marcus Webb. Kai, where are you? I'm at the Pineview Motel and there's nobody here. Being chased by Russian mobsters on Route 16 South. Call the state police. What? Kai, you're breaking up. The phone went silent just as a sudden impact shattered my passenger mirror. The SUVs were closing in, their strong engines easily overtaking my truck on the straight stretches. There! Bree pointed to a narrow dirt road disappearing into the forest. Turn there! That's not a road. That's a hiking trail. It connects to the old logging roads. I used to come camping here with my family. I had about 2 seconds to decide between trusting Bree's childhood memories or staying on the highway where we'd eventually be overtaken. I yanked the wheel hard left, sending the truck sliding onto the dirt path in a shower of leaves and gravel. The trail was barely wide enough for one vehicle, with tree branches scraping both sides of the truck and rocks banging against the undercarriage. Behind us, I could hear the Mercedes struggling with the rough terrain, its low-slung sports car design no match for backwoods conditions. Where does this go? I asked, fighting to keep control as we bounced over roots and rocks. There's an old quarry about 2 miles ahead. From there, we can get back to Route 302. If we don't get trapped first. The sound of the SUVs had faded. Apparently their drivers were smart enough not to risk expensive vehicles on a trail that could disable them. But that left Trent somewhere behind us, and I could still hear his engine grinding through the forest. The quarry, when we reached it, was a flooded pit surrounded by granite walls and abandoned mining equipment. The access road continued around the left side, but it was narrow and looked treacherous. Stop here, Bree said suddenly. What? Why? Because Trent's going to trail us along that road, and it leads nowhere. There's a long-standing rock slide about half a mile ahead. I eased the truck behind a rusted bulldozer and shut off the engine. Through the trees, we could hear Trent's Mercedes drawing nearer. What's the plan? I asked. We let him reach the final stretch, then we turn around and make our way out. And if he doesn't fall for it? Then we're probably going to get shot. Trent's Mercedes appeared at the edge of the quarry, moving slowly as he scanned for our tracks. Through his windshield, I could see his face twisted with desperation and rage. He paused at the fork in the road, engine idling, clearly trying to decide which way we'd gone. After a long moment, he turned left onto the narrow track that led to the rock slide. Now, Bree whispered. I started the engine and pulled out from behind the bulldozer, heading back toward the main trail. We'd made it maybe 100 yards when the sound of automatic gunfire erupted from the direction Trent had gone. Oh God, Bree said. They found him. Who found him? Kozlov's people. They must have come up the other side of the quarry. More gunshots, then silence. We sat in the truck, engines off, listening to the forest settle back into quiet. Is he? Bree couldn't finish the question. I don't know, but we need to get out of here before they come looking for us. I restarted the truck, and we continued down the trail, moving as quietly as possible. Every snapping branch or rustling leaf sounded like approaching footsteps. We'd almost reached Route 302 when my phone rang. Unknown number. Answer it, Bree said. It might be the police. I put the phone on speaker. A heavily accented voice filled the truck. Mr. Dornell, this is Victor Kozlov. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Your wife's boyfriend was most uncooperative. Before he died, however, he mentioned that she might have additional information about my money. Bree went white as paper. I'm not involved in your business dispute, I said. Perhaps, but Mrs. Dornell certainly is. She has account numbers, passwords, and transfer records that I need to recover my property. I don't have any of that information. Then I suggest you ask your wife, because if I don't get my money back, both of you will join Mr. Ardell in his current condition. The line went silent. Bree was shaking so hard she could barely speak. He's right. Trent made me memorize backup account information in case something happened to him. What kind of account information? Swiss bank accounts, cryptocurrency wallets, shell company records, millions of dollars that he was supposed to launder through real estate deals. And now, Kozlov wants it back. If I give him the information, he'll let us go. But if I don't... She didn't need to finish. We both knew what happened to people who crossed the Russian mob. We reached Route 302, and I turned toward the nearest town, hoping to find a police station or at least some witnesses. The highway was empty except for a few scattered houses and a gas station that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1980s. There, Bree pointed to a sign ahead. North Conway Police Department, 2 miles. But as we crested a hill, I saw the black SUVs waiting in the parking lot of a roadside diner. They'd anticipated our route and gotten ahead of us. Hold on, I said, spinning the wheel hard right onto a side road. Where are we going? I don't know, but we're not surrendering to Russian gangsters. The side road led through a residential area of small houses and mobile homes, the kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask too many questions. I was looking for somewhere to hide when I spotted something that made me smile for the first time in hours. A New Hampshire State Police cruiser was parked in the driveway of a modest ranch house. I pulled in behind it and leaned on the horn until a trooper appeared at the front door, looking annoyed and reaching for his weapon. Help you folks? We need protection from armed criminals who are pursuing us, I said, getting out with my hands visible. The trooper, a middle-aged man with sergeant's stripes, looked us over with professional skepticism. What kind of criminals? Russian mob. They just murdered a man at the old quarry, and they're trying to force my wife to give them stolen money. That's quite a story. You got any proof? I handed him my phone with Victor Kozlov's number still in the call log. Call that number. Ask him about Trent Ardell. The sergeant made the call, spoke briefly in Russian, then hung up with a grim expression. Well, that was educational. Get in the house. Now. Inside, he made rapid calls to the state police barracks, the FBI, and what sounded like a federal task force. Within minutes, we could hear sirens approaching from multiple directions. Ma'am, the sergeant said to Bree, I need you to write down everything you can remember about those account numbers and financial records. If I do that, will you protect us? If you cooperate fully, we'll do everything possible to keep you safe, but I can't make any guarantees about the charges you're facing. Bree looked at me, her eyes full of fear and resignation. What should I do? For the first time in days, I felt something close to sympathy for her. Whatever errors she'd made, she didn't deserve to be pursued by dangerous professionals. Tell them everything, I said. It's the only way this ends. She nodded and began writing, her hand shaking as she filled page after page with account numbers, passwords, and financial details. Outside, the sound of sirens grew louder as law enforcement descended on our location. My phone rang one more time. Victor Kozlov. Mr. Dornell, you have made a very poor decision. I've made the only decision that keeps us alive. Perhaps, but this is not over. My organization has a long memory and patient methods. Then you'll have plenty of time to remember this conversation from federal prison. I hung up and turned to Bree, who was still writing frantically. Is that everything? Everything I can remember. Account numbers, transfer codes, contact information for Trent's overseas partners. The sergeant took the pages and made copies. This should be enough to freeze the accounts and track the money. You may have just prevented millions of dollars from disappearing into criminal enterprises. Through the window, I could see FBI agents setting up a perimeter around the house. Whatever happened next, at least we were safe from immediate harm. What now? Bree asked. Now you face the consequences of your choices, I said. But at least you'll live to face them. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Kai, for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo the damage. No, she said quietly. It doesn't. The FBI agents were at the door now, ready to take Bree into protective custody pending her testimony against Kozlov's organization. Our marriage was over, her freedom was forfeit, and the life we'd built together was nothing but wreckage. But the line she'd crossed was finally behind us both, and for the first time in months, that felt like enough. As they led her away in handcuffs, Bree looked back one last time. Goodbye, Kai. Goodbye, Bree. The door closed, and she was gone. The line was broken, but I was finally free.